Welcome and thank you for meeting me this evening on our day 2 of our 5-day magical sock knitting journey in the realms enchanted by fairy tale beings and stories. I hope you're having a good start to your magical sock knitting and have been enjoying the work and the stories. I hope you had a chance to read the story into which we're going to dive in today. First, let's take a look at our knitting. So hopefully you've been working on the cuff since yesterday. Maybe you are just watching and preparing to work later. Either way, the journey will be welcoming to you, whether you're watching and preparing to knit or knitting alongside with me. What I wanted to show you today before we dive into the story is transition from the cuff to the leg portion of the sock. In your magical pattern from my journal notes, you're going to see that after the 22 rounds of the 2 knit 2 purl cuff rhythm, we're going to switch to 11 rounds worked in stockinette stitch. This means that all stitches are worked knit, no purls. In this pattern, this portion of the sock is called the illumination band, helping us prepare to see that which lies hidden and is ready for us to see it, helping us prepare to go through the forest gate with heart warm and eye keen, and illusions being dispelled. So we're going to pick up our work after you've finished the 22 rounds of the cuff, and we're then going to start at the beginning of the round by knitting each stitch. No purls. Everything now changes to knit. All stitches now become knit stitches. We still keep the 4 needles, the 4 directions. But we are switching now the rhythm to a different pace. Now we're ready to go from the foundation of the focus on 2 knit, 2 purl into a flowing rhythm of knitting all the way around. Much like a weaver or the one who spins yarn. Much like one of the Norns who spins the threads of fate under the roots of an old world tree. Her rhythm slow, her patterns deep, telling the one who finds her, knit, spin, weave, sew, not just with your fingers, but with your heart and soul too. So now, knitting this portion in a quiet space, in a quiet time, lets you breathe with the flow of the knit stitches for 11 rounds, reflecting on that which is asking to be seen. I would love to know if you had a chance to read the story. Let me know in the chat if you were able to read the story for day 2. As you're knitting, I want to give you some keys to the fairy tale for day 2 so that we can use our lessons and inspirations from the fairy tale realm to imbue them with that which wants to be seen into this part of the sock. Now the rhythm here for the sock is very important. You want to maintain the even stitch and the even tension. Hi Katie, welcome. I'm so glad you could read the story. I can't wait to share the magical little keys to the story for today. I really find them interesting. Now this part of the sock can also be embroidered later. It's much like a bracelet of the sock, where below the foundation of the cuff, the illumination of the blessings you're imbuing into your sock can take place. The rhythm of the flow of knit, 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 every stitch carries you. And you keep going. 11 rounds for this pattern. I'll let you keep knitting while I go into the story realm to give you some keys for unlocking the story realm. It's a very different story. It is obviously a story that wasn't written for bedtime, but has a lot to offer. At the very early part, we encounter a deer who speaks, gives a clue, gives a lesson. In ancient folk magic, animals, especially those who approach us in the wild, are seen as allies, messengers, envoys from the unseen realms, unseen to us as humans on earth, but seen by many other creatures. In this story, the deer serves both as an ally as well as a guardian of a threshold and a messenger. We learn here a reminder that listening for guidance in unexpected places helps us connect with magical powers around us. When an animal appears, it seeks to communicate to us and can often give us reminders or messages very important for our path. Then another part that's very important symbol in this story is the sky robe, the winged garment, a very powerful piece of clothing. Now here, a wisdom keeper, a wise teacher would remind us that we can use our hands and fiber threads to create garments that hold magic, that hold healing, that hold blessing, that empower, that protect, that safeguard. But like everything on earth in this place of duality, they can also become binds and need to be released when they have served their purpose. In the story, the heavenly maiden's robe is a magical garment tied to flight and invisibility, a potent tool and a symbol of the ability to travel between the heavenly and earthly realms. But also in the story, we see that such a garment can become a point of weakness or a point of binding to a person who might be held by them. So it's very wise to be very careful when we create with our hands and threads magical garments like these magical socks, that we imbue them with intentions, with blessings, with wishes, our stitches glowing with magic, but that we also remember when they have served their purpose and may need to be passed on, given as a gift to someone to imbue them with their own magic, intention, and blessing. Some people like to unravel their work and start over. Most people I know, and I too, like to release my intention from the garment and then gift it on to donate it where it might be needed by someone else. Some like to imbue the garments they donate with wishes for healing, well-being, safety. So many ways to share your love with the world through things you create in fiber. So I'm going to pick up the knitting and knit with you while I tell you more of this story's ease. Let me know in the chat how far along you are on your knitting project. If you're running into any troubles, if you've been able to see the knitting skills videos linked, there will be another one coming to you tomorrow. In the story, another symbol is the sacred pool or lake, pool of water, where the three maidens were bathing in moonlight. We see here the connection between the moon and the water and the emotional realm, but we also see how the water can become this liminal space where the two realms, the heavenly and the earthly, can meet beneath the moonlight. We also see a reminder of how cleansing and swimming can become empowering and also a source of healing. The sacredness of waters we are reminded of in this part of the story as well. The lake and the pond can become a portal between the realms. The moonlit swimming can become a ritual of personal healing, renewal, clarity, as well as transformation. But we also see how this process can be disturbed and how things can change and take a very different turn when such disturbances happen. Oh, very nice, Katie. You're already working on the illumination band. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Another symbol that's a key to pulling the magic out of today's story are the three buckets of symbolizing travel between the realms in stages, in 3 levels: birth, life, and death, beginning, middle, and end, acting like a path between the worlds that each of us on earth has to take. When traveling in spirit vision, remembering these stages, can be very important, and remembering that thresholds exist between the stages and between the realms, as well as that we have to honor the rules of each realm. For breaking those rules can close the gates, sometimes forever. We see a magical union happen later in the story. But this union did not happen in freedom. It happened through a forced magical binding. And the story teaches us of dire consequences when we attempt to project our magical work onto another's path. It never ends well. So it's also a cautionary tale as much as it is an inspirational and a teaching tale. And most magical fairy tales are like that. Later in the story, we encounter a broken promise. The woodcutter had made it to heavenly realms, but then needed to go back to earth for his transition into the heavenly realm was not made in freedom and following the rules of all the 3 stages. So he needed to go back. But before he went back, he gave a promise that he could not keep. And breaking this promise led to consequences. So we also are reminded here that when we are attempting to connect with and when we're attempting to work with magical beings from different realms in fairy tale journeys, promises that we give become promises that need to be kept. And breaking of such promises leads to consequences. We see the woodcutter return to earth to visit his mother, the origins of his path on earth, going to connect with the beginning, but also breaking that promise, breaking that deal that he made with the fairy realm of the heavenly maiden's realm. There is a symbol of pumpkin soup at this point in the story. It is said that if we wish to hold someone in our heart as they journey across the world, we could feed them a dish that carries the heart and soul of who they are and what they're connected with, and something that will remind them of home. Pumpkin soup is a symbol of that in this story. It ripens in autumn, the threshold time when the veil between worlds is thin. It carries the energy of completion and return to the earth, the very fate of the woodcutter who had to return to the earth. It represents the earth element, nourishment, stability, roots. It also represents sun, joy, abundance in its ripening. So it becomes a bridge between the grounded mortal life and the luminous heavenly realm. Wisdom keepers would say, it is the taste of the earth that remembers the light of the sky. And then at the very end of the story, we get to the rooster's cry that sounds like pumpkin soup, we're told in the story. Here we see a rooster symbolizing a memory, keeping the woodcutter's journey, experience, and yearning to stay alive in his world as remembered and not forgotten. We also see how this can become an incantation that holds the energy of this story in place for others to remember it and rediscover it. So as we come to the end of the story, we can consider how the gifts from the unseen realms will come with their own shadow, especially in fairy tale forests. Knowing the weight of the robe before we hide it, knowing the cost of a deal or a promise made before it is made and given, are important cautionary lessons for all who decide to venture into the fairy tale forest realm. And should one choose to live and love beyond the boundaries of their own realm, they shall love with their whole heart and keep their hands light, for they know not what brings delight and what might bring fright. So I want to stop to count the rows. Let me switch here so that we can count our rows together. So here, when I count the rows, I like to consider these little V's, these little arrows. And I like to start from the pearl row of the rib. So then I have this first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I need 4 more rounds to finish the illumination band on this sock. While we work on those rounds, let's take our story a little bit into our personal experience. So we can take the cautionary part of the tale and reverse it, so that as we're creating our magical socks, they become our magical garment that is our own transformation of these cautionary lessons into sources of empowerment. Especially nice it is to do during the time we knit the illumination band, where we want to illuminate that which has been hidden in the shadow realms of our own experiences in the world. So what part of this story, this fairy tale, do you feel resonating within you? Maybe there's a moment that stirs you or that triggers your thoughts in a surprising direction, or maybe there's a reminder of something that you had forgotten. Sometimes these things can be very personal, but if there's something you can share, I would love to see you share it in the chat so that we can bring them further into illumination and witness them for each other. So what is it that needs to be seen, that calls to be seen? Or why do you think that which needs to be seen is calling your attention? And how can we imbue that realization into our illumination band of our socks? With our voice, with our craft, with our creativity, with our courage, we can create this pair of socks in a way that becomes a true magical item of our own. Katie feels like the woodcutter needs to go back and check on his mother on Earth was a part that resonated with me. I feel that, Katie, too. I got to the end of the story and I thought, how did the binding that happened earlier in the story, it really needed to be undone. he started to feel that. And it was little bit of a, maybe it's the age, I don't know, but I felt that strongly too. So consider while you're doing this tonight, when you put your knitting down to rest until tomorrow, consider putting on top of your work maybe a little pinch of herbs that resonate with what is coming up for you from this story. Maybe you want to understand your dreams better. Maybe you will put a little pinch of mugwort on top of your work. Maybe you're seeking clarity and you will put a pinch of rosemary on top of your work to imbue your work with its energy. Maybe you are seeking a sense of peace and calm, and maybe a pinch of passion flower or a lavender chamomile would be a good herb energy to place on top of your work overnight tonight until you're ready to pick it up tomorrow again. I would love to know if you're knitting 1 or 2 socks at a time. Have you started both at the same time? How are you finding the process of our journey? Tomorrow is the midpoint, and the most challenging part of the forest comes tomorrow. We are going to encounter some shape-shifting fae tomorrow in our story, as well as a shape-shifting portion of turning the heel and setting up the gusset, which can be quite a challenge to work. So I would love to know how you're feeling at this point in our project and our journey. While you're adding your notes to the chat and working on your socks, imbuing them with this magic, what are some things that you are finding are coming to you as inspiration? Katie, you're working on 1 sock at the time. Yes, I prefer to do that as well. Have you started maybe your knitting journal, your magical knitting journal, documenting things that are coming up along the way? Oh, good, Katie. Well, this is a beginner type of sock, so it's going to be a simplified heel turn. I promise it'll work out. It's not going to be too scary. But I still thought a Fae shape-shifting story was appropriate for tomorrow. So I hope that the journal will be fun to create and combine your knitting work with these inspirations. I want to close today with the blessing. May your hands move with the flow of the tides in the space that is timeless. May your knitting call forth the rhythms of the elders in the ancient realms where fairy tales meet fiber threads. Look out for the email for day 3 tomorrow morning and the link to our live stream for tomorrow night. We'll work on the heel turn and set up for the gusset and go into a rather scary story that will make work on the heel look like nothing to be afraid of. Blessed be, blessings to all of love and joy, and see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for being here.